Hello, my name is Sherrie Raven. I work with CASEL, the Collaborative for Academic, Social, and Emotional Learning. And we're going to talk today a little bit about social and emotional learning in your context. For our inclusive welcome today, I want you to think about a young person in your life. What do you hope they will learn and be able to do to be prepared for a world of tomorrow? I'll ask you to hold that young person and your hopes for them in mind as we go through today. CASEL is celebrating its 30th anniversary this year. It has been a definer of the term social emotional learning and what that looks like in schools. We've done this through research, through policy work, advocating for SEL, and through practice implementation work, helping schools develop plans and implement them for students. Along with that, we've worked on collaboration. We've begun and continue to be a group of districts, researchers, and policymakers working together for the field of social emotional learning. We are nonpartisan and nonprofit, and we work with communications to share what we learn across the field. So, what is social and emotional learning? Many of you are familiar with the CASEL wheel that starts with the 5 competencies in the middle of self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, relationship skills, and responsible decision-making. The rings around the wheel talk about settings and where students and young people and adults are every day. So social emotional learning is not just lessons in a classroom. It also is about the policies and practices in the school for discipline, for adult interaction, for multi-tiered systems of support. It goes beyond that to partnerships with families and caregivers and aligned learning opportunities in partnership with community members. We've talked about these 5 core competencies for a minute. And when you look at these competencies and think about skills within them, know that the skills are examples. They are never an exhaustive list, but anything that you do is going to involve one of these competencies. As we think about SEL, many of the districts we work with think about transformative SEL or TSEL, working on the idea of how the competencies align with a little bit tighter focus, a focal construct. So it doesn't replace the competencies, but it helps make them a little bit clearer, maybe, like if you were tightening the focus on a camera. So all of these things work together, the key settings, the focal constructs, and the competencies to enhance our understanding of SEL. We also think that this language helps you decide what works best in your setting. For many, talking about identity, agency, and belonging really resonates with them and are things they want to work on with their students. And when you add to that collaborative problem solving and the idea of being curious while you're making decisions, for many locations, these words work in concert with the competencies very well. Focuses and priorities for CASEL include working with families, working with adults, and integrating SEL throughout the day in academic settings so that SEL is not a standalone subject or something else to do, but something that is present throughout the school day in all settings. Why do we work on these things? Because we really want to lean into creating conditions where every child and every adult in our school is thriving and doing good work and growing and working on being human beings with strong relationships, learning, and working on pedagogy and policies as well. All of these are impacted by work on social emotional learning and support that work. So when we do this work, we think about systemic SEL because we want SEL to be so embedded in your school, in your setting, that it's not teacher dependent, it's not principal dependent. It is something that is in the very fabric of the school or the organization you work with. So we always ask people to start with organizing, building support and planning, and thinking about, where do you want to go? Where have you been? Where are you now? And where do you want to go in the future? Then you'll notice these two green ones. We always start with the adults because the adults have to understand what's happening and have to be part of the planning and the decision making for the work to be successful. But we pair the work with the adults and the work with the students because they do go hand in hand. I love the analogy of the pedals on a bicycle, that you can pedal just using one pedal, but you're not going to go as far or as fast as you will when you use both pedals. So the adult work and the student work together to increase the speed and the synergy of the work that you're doing. But we would always caution you to start with the adults and make sure that they understand what the work is and where you're going and the why behind it. Throughout the work, all the way through, we talk about improvement, continuous improvement, collecting data, using the rapid learning cycles that are shown down in the bottom right corner of this slide. How do you work in small increments instead of waiting to measure something till the end of the year to find out if what you're doing is working and either continue it or tweak it if it's not doing what you want it to do? I want to share a lot of tools with you now that will help you start on your journey. The first one is Leading School-Wide SEL. This is an online course. It is free. It is about an hour if you do it. Well, you can do it two ways. You can do it independently online, or you can do it in a group with a facilitator, and there is a guide and activities for people to do as they take this course. It is a great way to introduce the adults in your building to social emotional learning and what it means to them. This course is also available in Spanish, and the link here on the slide will take you straight to the site where you can log in. You have to create an account and get started to do that training. The District Resource Center looks at systemic SEL from an organizational perspective. And what you see on the screen here are the 10 indicators. As we've worked with districts across the country for the last 13, 14 years, and we think about districts that are doing good work in SEL and making progress, these are elements that we tend to see in those districts. So they have become our district indicators and help guide you in deciding what will work for you and how to move the work forward. So these are your North Stars, as they were. And if you're doing district work, the District Resource Center at drc.casel.org has a wealth of information and a wealth of things to do to help you on your way. There are messages for superintendents and leaders, and there are activities to help you move the work forward there, and examples from districts that have already done it. If you're working at a campus level, the school guide, the guide to school-wide SEL, found at schoolguide.casel.org, is your best friend. It has got everything you need in it. It's a little overwhelming. It has so much in it. But just like we talked about the 10 indicators for districts, these are the 10 indicators of what we look for in schools that are focusing on and doing strong social emotional learning work. Notice that this is not just having SEL lessons on Tuesday afternoon, but it's how do you integrate SEL with academics? How do you give students voice? Sometimes in the governance of the school, sometimes choice and voice within the classroom in the order of the assignments that they do, or the topics that they're working on, or the way they choose to present something. How do we empower students and give them agency and give them voice in what is going on? What is the climate of the classroom in the school like, and how do we improve those? And always keep that in mind, because we know that until a student is in the right place for learning and is calm and regulated and able to focus, they're not going to learn. We also know that relationships are perhaps the single strongest component to a student's success. Does every student have an adult who knows something about them besides their name and something at school? Does every student have a strong, positive relationship with their classroom teacher? Are they greeted at the door? Does their teacher use their name frequently? All of those things go into school and classroom climate. Are you focusing on adults, giving time for professional learning, having adults share with each other about implementation? Have you thought about your discipline policy? Is it focused more on being restorative than punitive? And is it based in skills of social emotional learning? When you think about MTSS and integrated supports, is social emotional learning focused on throughout the tiers of support for your students? And then how are you working with your families? Are they integral members of your school? And do they know what you're teaching in social emotional learning so they can help teach the same at home? They are our students' first and best teachers. When you think about community partnerships, think about after school care, think about sports teams, think about the Boys and Girls Club or the YMCA in your area. How are you aligning with them so that social emotional learning is supporting your students 24 hours a day, not just the 6 to 8 hours that you have them? And then how are you continuously improving? Setting goals, collecting data, and changing things as you need to as you go is so critically important to every movement within education and also for social emotional learning. We want your work to be grounded in evidence, not in guesswork or anecdotes all the time, but in real data that you can collect and use to improve your work. One more tool to share with you is the 3 signature practices at signaturepractices.casel.org. We started this session with an inclusive welcome, and in person, or even with us live on Zoom, it would have included your voice being brought into the room. Then engaging strategies. We didn't use many of these today, but in person or on Zoom, we would have talked with each other. We might have done a breakout group. We might have done a poll. How do you have people be involved and not passive during presentations or learning? And then an intentional close, taking time to think and bridge from here to where you're going next, letting you reflect on what you've done and learned here today. I encourage you to look at these signature practices. They're a great way for a quick start, for you to start doing the work in your adult meetings first, and then move to classrooms as well, because these can be tied to academics and they reflect the very best learning cycle for students and for adults. For an intentional close today, I'd ask you to think about what are your next steps for implementing SEL in your classroom, your school, or your district? And who will your next conversation be with about SEL to help you move the work forward? Thank you for your time today. I hope this has been helpful to you, and please reach out if we can support you with materials or guide you in the right direction.